Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, big news in baseball. One of the best players in baseball, Juan Soto, was traded by the Padres to the Yankees. We'll talk about that trade. We will talk about whether the Dodgers were ever in it and how rare it is for the Dodgers to trade within their division. We'll talk about Eduardo Rodriguez, who last we heard was afraid of playing in the West, signing with the Diamondbacks. Maybe he hasn't heard about that oceanfront property that George Strait sang about. And finally, we will talk about some of the right-handed hitting options for the Dodgers as they look to fill out their roster. That's what's on tap. So let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. Then you can be an everydayer just like we are. If this is your first time with us, I am Jeff Snider. That guy next to me is my co-host, Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. And no big news in Dodgerland on Wednesday. A little more fallout about the Dave Roberts stuff that we talked about yesterday. We won't rehash that. Nothing major. Shohei Ohtani still hasn't decided on anything. Maybe the biggest news specific to the Dodgers was John Heyman reporting that the White Sox are pulling back on Dylan Cease trade talks right now, presumably waiting until after Yoshinobu Yamamoto has signed with someone, giving them more leverage with teams that miss out on Yamamoto. But there was some news that affects the Dodgers in a couple ways. The biggest news in baseball was the Padres traded Juan Soto to the Yankees. They got 5 players back. They got Michael King, who is a big leaguer, who is a very good pitcher. And then they got 4 prospects. Kyle Higashioka is a major league catcher, then 3 prospects of varying degrees of quality. Not the haul that the Padres gave up to get Juan Soto a couple of years ago, which makes sense because back then he had, 3.5 years left, 2.5. I don't remember when they got him, but he had a lot more time left on his contract than he has now with just 1 year left before he hits free agency. It's a great move for the Yankees, who needed more left-handed hitting, even after getting Alex Verdugo the other day. It'll be interesting to see how they line up their outfield. It sounds like they're planning on having Aaron Judge be their everyday center fielder because, they did get Trent Grisham in the trade too. And Trent Grisham is one of the best defensive center fielders in baseball, but has forgotten how to hit the last couple of years. And so you've got Alex Verdugo, Aaron Judge, and Juan Soto, who Soto's bad defensively. Verdugo is a good defensive right fielder, and Judge is a good defensive right fielder. Judge has played some center in the past, but it sounds like even though Judge is coming off foot surgery and all of that stuff, like their plan is to have, as of right now, for him to be their everyday center fielder.
He wouldn't be coming off foot surgery if he was playing center field last year. So, maybe it works out better for them. But yeah, I mean, knowing kind of how things have gone in New York and maybe similar to LA, it might work itself out. Like, they said Stan might be coming in lighter this year, the next year to be healthier, but he's always due for a couple injuries a year. And then, that puts somebody at DH and that puts, Grisham for sure in center field, and then they can figure it out from there. So yeah, obviously, big news. It feel, the way it kind of went down. Baseball, it's been reported. And then when it finally went down, it was like, getting closer to nighttime on a Wednesday of once all the teams had already pretty much left the winter meetings. So I don't know if it got all the shit, but I mean, it is, in the grand scheme of things, pretty big deal, generational player going to the Yankees. That hasn't happened in a while. And, on that front, crazy. On the front, specifically for the Dodgers, they got some new arms they might face. But, not having to see Trent Grisham and then for sure not having to see Juan Soto about 13 times a season for at least this next season is pretty beneficial.
Yeah, I could see Grisham waking up with the bat in New York with that short porch in right field. We've seen him hit some wall scraper home runs against the Dodgers that, barely get out in right field. That would be, 10th row in New York. So, maybe that's all he needs. And maybe he does end up being the regular center fielder. Like you said, Stanton can't be counted on. And for that matter, Judge, when he's healthy, he's awesome, but he, has been injured in about half of his major league seasons too. So, you can never have too many outfielders, I guess, if you are the Yankees. It's kind of interesting that the Blue Jays for a while had been reported as the front runners. The talks between the Padres and Yankees had cooled off, and then the Blue Jays were the front runners. I'm not really sure at this point what happened there, if the Yankees just came back more aggressive, said, okay, we'll give you what you want, or if the Blue Jays hemmed and hawed over the price. It would be interesting. A few days ago, it looked like the Blue Jays might get Juan Soto and Shohei Ohtani. Now they definitely didn't get Juan Soto. And if the Dodgers can, it sounds, there are reports that Ohtani is down to the Dodgers and Blue Jays. So if the Dodgers can get Ohtani, that's kind of a double whammy for Blue Jays fans. As far as this goes for the Dodgers, I talked a week or so ago about how I would love to have Juan Soto on the Dodgers, and we said it was probably not realistic for the Padres to trade Soto to the Dodgers. But there was always, knowing that the Padres are in a weird financial situation, thought, what, if the Dodgers have the best deal to offer, maybe they will. And one of our listeners, Mike Markham, sent me a DM wondering, do you think the Dodgers got shut out? Like could have beat that package, but didn't get the opportunity. And, I doubt it ever got to the point of the Dodgers even seriously inquiring. I think they probably got word pretty early that either the Padres weren't interested in trading Soto to them, or, we don't even know for sure that they were interested in Soto. What they're giving up for 1 year of control, knowing that he is a guy who's likely to test free agency a year from now. If they want Juan Soto, they can get him without giving up any prospects a year from now. All it takes is money. But yeah, I don't know. Do you think the Dodgers even thought about Juan Soto this offseason?
Yeah, so AJ Preller's talking about the trade now. He said there was 10 teams that reached out, ended up kind of getting narrowed down to 3 there toward the end. And then obviously Yankees ended up winning. He didn't name any of the teams, obviously. I would imagine the Dodgers made the call, or at least to kind of see, and and I'm sure AJ Preller said it starts with Bobby Miller, and then the Dodgers said, okay, we're cool. Like I whatever it was, specifically for Dodgers and Padres, kind of how we feel like if the Trout deal was ever really a possibility with the Angels, like there might be. We talk about the Dodger tax a lot, and I think it's just, sometimes it's a little bit overblown because we know the prospects and, we feel more comfortable, with them and not wanting to trade them maybe. Whereas here, they might have literally had a Dodger tax where, we'll give them to you, but it's going to cost you a little bit more than maybe somebody else.
Yeah, I think so too. In fact, we're going to come back in a minute. We're going to talk about the Dodgers' history of trading with the Padres and other teams in their division, kind of in the context of the Yankees and Red Sox pulling off a big trade. We'll talk about that. We'll also dig into Eduardo Rodriguez signing with the DBacks. So we'll be back with that. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Moneyline means you just pick the winner, and if you're right and you put at least $5 on it, boom, FanDuel gives you $150 in bonus bets that you can use for any other bets that you want on FanDuel. Thursday night football tonight is the Steelers against the Patriots. You can't bet the over-under to get this bonus money. It's just a money line. But if you are betting the over-under, I'd bet the under, because it sounds like neither of these teams can score this season. But, Steelers probably going to win that game. Might be easy $150 for you. Put $5, if you think. I'm not giving you gambling advice. I'm not telling you who to bet on. But if you think the Steelers are going to win, put $5 on the Steelers, and boom, you can earn $150 if you're right. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Hey, we're back. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Especially want to thank our everydayers, those of you who are with us either on the podcast or on YouTube every weekday morning. It means a ton to us. We love talking Dodgers with you. It's been fun seeing your Spotify end-of-year wraps. Some of you with over 7,000 minutes listened to this year. That is a whole lot of minutes, and we really appreciate you everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. Also want to remind you that Locked On has created two 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube that might be of interest to you. There's Locked On Sports Today, which covers all of the big stories in sports across the nation with all the sports shows, the national shows, and any big news. You'll probably get Locked On Yankees on that channel tomorrow or today because of the Juan Soto trade. So covering all the big stuff. There's also Locked On Sports Los Angeles, which is the same thing, streaming 24/7 on YouTube, but focusing specifically on LA sports. So you can get this podcast every day there, plus Locked On MLB and Locked On NFL and all the individual teams. So check out both of those 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube, Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles. If you are watching this on YouTube, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the YouTube comments section. If you're listening on the podcast, we'd love to hear from you through social media or email. We'll give you all that contact info at the end, like always. Getting back to Juan Soto, and kind of tying back to our conversation the other day about Alex Verdugo getting traded to the Yankees. It was a big deal that it was only the sixth time that the Red Sox and Yankees have traded together, which is, it's meaningful. Sixth time in the recent past. The Yankees and Red Sox have actually made dozens of trades with each other, but it doesn't happen very often recently. And our buddy Brandon Johnson at Brandon John 442 on Twitter. I hope Brandon hasn't changed his Twitter handle. That's the one I have memorized. Looks like that's still right. He sent me a DM and asking about, is the Yankees Red Sox trade history really that rare? How does it compare to the Dodgers Giants? And so I looked at all of the teams in the NL West that the Dodgers, how often have the Dodgers traded with them? And the four NL West opponents the Dodgers have made since moving to LA. And I did since moving to LA because the Giants were the only team in the NL West that even existed when the Dodgers moved to LA. The Padres came around in 1969, the Rockies in 93, and the DBacks in 98. So for three of the teams, it's their entire history. For the Giants, it's since both teams moved to the West Coast. The Dodgers have made a grand total of 27 trades within the NL West since moving to LA. That's an average of what's 27 divided by 4, 6.5-ish, almost 7 trades per franchise. Very, very rare. They've only made 6 trades with the Padres, and the Dodgers have won most of them. There was, the Matt Beatty for River Ryan trade. River Ryan hasn't even made the majors yet, and the Dodgers already won that trade. There was the Matt Kemp for Yasmani Grandal trade. That was definitely in the Dodgers column. And the rest of them have all been pretty much nothing trades. But the only two that had any real significance, the Dodgers won both of those. The Giants and Dodgers traded with each other pretty frequently before the teams moved, kind of like the Yankees and Red Sox. But since the two teams moved, they've only made 3 trades with each other. And 1968, it was a nothing trade. Ron Hunt for Tom Haller, basically. 1985, Candy Maldonado for Alex Trevino. And then 2007, Mike Sweeney for a player to be named later, who never made the majors, I don't think. So in my lifetime, there have only been 2 trades between the Giants and the Dodgers. In my youngest son's lifetime, there's been 0, and he's 12. So that's very rare. Dodgers and Rockies have made 9 trades, and Dodgers and D-backs have made 9 trades. And then I also looked up the Angels. Dodgers and Angels have made since they have a handful. It looks like they've got about 18 or 19 trades with each other, but not a lot of. There's obviously the Howie Kendrick for Andrew Heaney trade. Very rare do you see a big trade. They've definitely never been a trade of someone the caliber of Mike Trout. There's not many people the caliber of Mike Trout, and I don't think Reggie Williams for Mike James in 1993 qualifies. So looks like the last big one was probably in 1972, a trade that involved Frank Robinson and Bobby Valentine and Andy Messersmith. So that's the last big one. Yeah. So whether there's a Dodger tax or not, it does seem like there's a lot of teams that aren't willing to trade with the Dodgers, or the Dodgers aren't interested in trading with. And, it's I don't know how much sense it makes. We do know that the Rockies were adamant about not trading with the Dodgers with Nolan Arenado. And you suspect that there's probably similar sentiments among some of these other teams.
Yeah, it feels more recent of like straight up, we don't want to trade them to the Dodgers because, one, the Dodgers most of the time do well on trades, and two, the Dodgers have been good, and you don't want to help a team in your division get better, because for the most part, the Dodgers are always going to make trades, at least the bigger trades that are helping them like now to win, not necessarily down the line. Now, the Beatty River Ryan trade was probably a throwaway trade in the sense, and now he might be either somebody that helps the Dodgers via trade or at one point reaching the majors and pitching well for them. So I think recently it's more about that. In the past, I can't say for sure. Maybe it's just a matter of there's not a lot of intra-division trades in general, I would imagine. I know probably some teams in some divisions more than others, but at least for the Dodgers, I can see it. And the other part is like, a lot of other teams consider the Dodgers their rival. That the Dodgers don't, the Dodgers' rival is the Giants. But if you ask Padres who the rival is, they'll say the Dodgers. If you ask the D-backs, they'll probably say the Dodgers. If you ask the Rockies, maybe they'll say the Dodgers. Or
I think they would.
Yeah. So I think that also plays a part in it. But they're
and you ask the Angels.
Yeah. It's the Angels, and definitely they're up there too. So I think it's part of that. And I mean, realistically, they haven't missed out on too much, since some of those teams usually aren't that great. And then, when it's more bigger talent, Nolan Arenado, Mike Trout, Juan Soto, the Dodgers do miss out. But again, what it might have cost them wasn't going to be worth it realistically.
Yeah. Moving on from that, Eduardo Rodriguez, last we heard about him was at the trade deadline when the Dodgers worked out a trade for him, and then he nixed the trade, invoked his no trade clause. The reports at the time were that he was comfortable on back east, didn't want to go that far west. He got over that, I guess. Arizona is Phoenix is what 300, 400 miles east of LA. So, maybe he was willing to go as far as Palm Desert, but couldn't get all the way to LA. And so he signed with the D-backs, 4 years, $80 million. And it affects the Dodgers, obviously, because the D-backs are in the Dodgers division. Eduardo Rodriguez is a guy who I'm not sure how good he is. We know there was a AL Central boost for a lot of pitchers last year. A lot of guys were good against the AL Central and not great against everybody else. And maybe he was one of those guys as far as being better overall numbers because he was playing the AL Central. What do you think of Eduardo Rodriguez, and are you scared now that he is in the division?
I mean, not scared. The Dodgers got to him pretty well when he pitched against them last year after the trade deadline. He's number 3. For the D-backs, it's a good move. He's the number 3 guy over there behind Gallen and Merrill Kelly, or Merrill Gurriel if you're Bob Nightingale. So it's a good move for them. It's a relatively fair contract. It's better than the Bumgarner deal they gave out a few years ago. So that's good on them. I think, obviously he's always gonna have that thing with Dodgers now, no matter what. And now he's gonna face them a little bit more often, at Dodger Stadium. So he'll get not the warmest welcome every time he comes to Dodger Stadium, but for the Dodgers, he's in that second to maybe third tier of guys that you're looking at. Obviously you want a one type guy, and then you're looking at that next group. I don't know if he's probably in between like a Giolito and a Jordan Montgomery, or similar to a Jordan Montgomery, that second tier, could round down to a third tier if you really looked at it, if you have a really good rotation. So not the biggest deal for the Dodgers, and the D-backs, like I said, they made the World Series, but regular season, they weren't that great of a team. They won 85, 86 games. And they Brandon Pfaadt had a really good postseason, but wasn't that great in the regular season. We don't know what you're getting out of him. So I think for them it's a good move. I don't think the Dodgers are that worried about it, but again, that's considering the fact that the Dodgers haven't made any moves yet, we don't know what their rotation looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of. Do you think the Dodgers need a left-handed starter?
I'm not of the mind that you need that a left-handed starter specifically.
That's the way I feel too. I see a lot of people panicking that currently all the Dodgers starters are righties, but
We had them all lefties a couple years ago. So
yeah, guys who are starting pitchers usually stay in the rotation, at least in part because they don't have major platoon splits. Guys who have the stuff, enough pitches to get guys of both hands out. There's going to be some platoon splits, but honestly, if you're going to have all one or the other, there's more right-handed hitters than left-handed hitters, and so you'd probably rather have all righties than all lefties. I remember when I was a teenager, the Dodgers went almost 5 full years between starts from a lefty, from Dennis Baez to Bob Ojeda or something. No, Dennis Reyes. Dennis Baez and Dennis Reyes are the same person, I think. But yeah, they went almost 5 years, I think it was. And so, you know what? And of course, maybe that's not, I don't think the Dodgers were actually very good during that time, but I don't think that's why. So yeah, and even if they do need one, I'd probably rather have Jordan Montgomery than Eduardo Rodriguez. So we're going to come back. Speaking of righties and lefties, there are reports that the Dodgers are still on the prowl for a right-handed hitting outfielder / utility kind of guy to round out their roster. In addition to some of the bigger moves they're trying to make, we are going to talk about some of those options. So please keep it locked on Dodgers. Hey, we're back. Thanks again to all our everydayers for being with us every weekday morning. Please become an everydayer if you're not one by watching and listening every weekday morning. Remember to check out Locked On's 2 24/7 streaming channels, Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 24/7 streaming on YouTube to give you everything you could want to know about the entire sports world or specifically the Los Angeles sports world, depending on which channel you want to go to. Check both of those out. So there were reports, Vince.
Real quick, breaking news, Candelario to the Reds.
Candelario to the Reds, which was going to come up in this segment anyway. So we were going to talk about the rumors that he was reported to be going there. And so we'll start there because there were reports that the Dodgers are interested in guys like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, maybe a reunion with Kiké Hernández. We'll dig into both of those guys in a minute. But another thing that got me thinking was the report that the Reds were close to signing Jeimer Candelario, and the one tweet I saw said if they did sign him, they would probably trade an infielder this offseason. And so I got to think about that because the Reds have a lot of infielders. If you look at what they had before they signed Candelario, they have Spencer Steer, Jonathan India, Ellie De La Cruz, Nick Senzel, Christian Encarnacion Strand, Matt McLean, Kevin Newman, and Noelvi Marte.
They're non-tender Senzel, but yeah.
Oh, they did non-tender Senzel. That's right. So we're down to only 7. I think all those guys. So I know that what's his name? De La Cruz is a switch hitter. I think all of them bat right-handed at least, or maybe switch hitter. So depending on who the Reds decide to trade, and they've got a lot of different ways they could go, but there's a couple of guys who I just listed who would be, interesting to me. We know that Spencer Steer can play infield and outfield. He is I think he's from Southern California. He's from Long Beach, went to Millikan High School in Long Beach. Matt McLean is another California boy. Both of those guys have some potential, both very good hitters. And it depends on what the Reds are trying to do, because you've got, it wouldn't necessarily make sense to sign Candelario just to trade somebody who's one of their better hitters. And so more likely, but when you look at that, it's like all of these guys are reasonably good. It's not like any of those guys are slouches. Ellie De La Cruz had the worst numbers of any of those guys last year, and I doubt they're trading De La Cruz. Noelvi Marte is the top prospect they got from the Mariners in the trade for that one pitcher whose name I can't remember right now. What was that pitcher's name who the Reds traded to the Mariners? Long hair.
Luis Castillo.
So, if they decide to trade one of those guys, I mean, Kevin Newman is the only one of those guys who's not good. and maybe he's the one they trade. But you have any favorites on that Reds roster who you'd like to see the Dodgers going after?
Yeah, I would imagine Ellie's probably not on there. Jonathan India is one that stands out just because it would probably cost a little bit less. To me, it feels like the Reds are doing this to free up a spot to trade for a starting pitcher. Realistically, maybe one with control. They were in the mix or mentioned for like Dylan Cease and guys like that, and maybe that's what they're doing. So I don't know if the Dodgers line up there, but if there was, I think India or Steer are probably the two guys I wouldn't mind seeing. They would fit a role for the Dodgers, but it's also you're not trading for one of those two guys to not be an everyday starter. And if that was the case, if you wanted to make one of them a starter, it's again all hinges on, okay, do they have a DH? If not, then Max Muncy can move to DH. But if they do have a DH, then now that kind of kicks Mookie back out to the outfield if they want to play somebody, So it's a lot of moving parts, but I think those two are probably the ones that stood out.
Yeah, I think so too. India is a guy who, there's been talks that they might trade him. He was rookie of the year a couple of years ago, but has kind of struggled since then. So yeah, he'd be interesting, but it does seem like maybe the Dodgers are looking more for, like you said, a role player. And that's why guys like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa comes up, Kiké Hernández. I got a DM from another listener asking, this was from Shelly, who's a neighbor of mine here in Utah. I don't know her in person, but I know that she used to live in the town I live in. She's a big Kiké fan and was wondering why we haven't talked much about Kiké. And I told her it's because if the Dodgers bring Kiké back, it would likely be in a utility role. And just like the last time Kiké was a free agent, he's probably going to get better offers to get more playing time somewhere else. And so, but if Kiké does want to come back to the Dodgers, he fits that role perfectly of being that utility guy, can play infield and outfield, hits right-handed, everything the Dodgers are looking for. The question is, does he want to be a utility player in LA or does he want to be a starter somewhere else?
Yeah, I think the other reason we haven't talked about Kiké is because we've mostly talked about starting or impact players, and we haven't got down to utility type guys yet. And that's what he would fit for the Dodgers. He's not going to be an everyday player for the Dodgers. Again, like you said, he can get probably a better deal somewhere or more playing time or whatever. But, he kind of talked about it more than once where being on a winning team, being in that environment, being at Dodger Stadium, it kind of refreshed him, kind of made him realize, grass isn't always greener. He had one good year in Boston, and then after that, it just kind of, started falling off. So, yeah, he fits what they would need perfectly, assuming they fill out the rest of the roster with, an actual DH and an actual outfielder. But, yeah, I would love to have Kiké back, not just on a level on the field, but also off the field. Like, he's a very fun guy to talk to. So,
yeah. And then you have Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who it has kind of transferred into that utility role. Last year for the Yankees, he played 7 different positions everywhere except catcher and first base. Actually, he did pitch for him. And so plus he DH'd. He only got 361 plate appearances. So he seems to be that utility kind of player. The main problem with him is that he can't hit. And I don't know that that's what the Dodgers are really looking for.
Yeah, they already have an infielder that can't hit.
Yeah, it's always weird to me when the Dodgers get linked to guys like this because, and he's been good defensively at several different positions. Actually, he won a Gold Glove at third base the year after he was the Rangers starting catcher. And then he moved to shortstop the year after winning a Gold Glove at third base. And he was good defensively at all those positions. But, like you said, they have Miguel Rojas who can play, he can't play outfield. Well, he hasn't played outfield. I'm sure. I bet Miguel Rojas is probably the Dodgers' 4th best defensive outfielder right now, even though he's never played outfield. But, I don't know that defensive flexibility is enough to overcome the fact that he just can't hit.
Yeah. One more name Dodgers were linked to in an article by Fabian Ardaya, Michael A. Taylor, who, has been around a few teams. You might remember him connected to the Dodgers specifically when he missed that ball in center field on Yasiel Puig's hit. Puig ends up with a Little League home run to walk off the game.
After Taylor went 0 for 5 with 5 strikeouts in the game before that.
Yeah, I think that was Dusty Baker bobblehead, and I accidentally stepped all over the box from all the jumping when Puig hit that. But yeah, he's a guy who's had improvements lately. He hits left-handed pitching a little bit well. He really only plays outfield, so doesn't necessarily fit the exact criteria. But again, it all kind of depends on what else they get the rest of this offseason to fill out the actual starting lineup.
Yeah, and Taylor is an elite defensive center fielder. He's so good that the Twins turned Byron Buxton into a DH. That's how good Taylor is defensively. Not much of a hitter. He's had one season with an OPS plus over 100. His career OPS plus is 83. So yeah, definitely have to be a platoon guy. But he does have power when he does accidentally run into the ball. But so a lot of names there. Honestly, my favorite of all those is Kiké coming back. Kike's comfortable in LA. He can play all the positions, and obviously the fans love him. So if Kiké is okay being a utility player, I'd love to have him back, and I'm sure the Dodgers would love to have him back. I just don't know how realistic that is.
Yeah.
I think that's going to do it for us for today. You got anything else, Vince?
No, we got some traction here the last day to kind of save the winter meetings a little bit. Eduardo Rodriguez, Jaimer Candelario, and Soto. Andrew Friedman spoke and basically said the same thing he said before. We got, we found out intel or whatever on a lot of fronts, and he expects it to be busy the next couple of weeks. But
yeah, the Rule 5 draft happened. Didn't really affect the Dodgers very much. They didn't lose anybody in the major league portion. They lost two players, Carson Taylor and Darlin Pinales in the minor league portion. Darlin Pinales had an ERA of 9.16 in the minors last year, so probably won't hear that name again. Carson Taylor, is that the guy's name? That catcher? Yeah, Carson Taylor. Decent prospect, but probably sixth on the Dodgers catching minor league depth chart. So didn't probably have a future with the Dodgers. So probably won't think about those guys much. And that's all that happened in the Rule 5 draft for the Dodgers. So, and they made the Jason Hayward signing official finally. So the 40-man roster is currently at 40. So they weren't even eligible to participate in the major league portion of the Rule 5 draft. They still haven't announced Joe Kelly officially. And so they're going to have to make a roster move before they can make that official, whether that's a trade or a DFA or something. So anyway, that'll do it for us for today. Thank you all for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Especially thank you to our everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, please watch or listen every day. If you have friends and family who love the Dodgers as much as you do, please tell them about the show. Maybe they'll like it. You can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and the DMs are open for both of us there. You can email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com. Or you can send us a voicemail or a text message at 323-863-LOCK 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.